Hi everyone, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are located. And thank you for joining this new edition of the webinar about boosting requirements management capabilities. My name's Ilyas Yusfi, and today's episode is the 9th of a series of 10. And the topic of today will be collaboration and specifically everything related to change management in collaborative environments. So I'll shortly introduce the reuse company and myself, and then ask the question about collaborations. What is it, and why do we need this in today's organizations? To introduce then the need for configuration management in requirements engineering, in effective requirements engineering collaboration, and then I'll cover two use cases that show how we can manage collaborative environments within MS Word using the add-in. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you ask your question through the chat box, then we'll be answering them during this Q&A slot. So let's get into the topic of collaboration and change management. So I first define collaboration and explain why should we focus on collaboration. So collaboration is about working together to achieve the common goal. So here there are two important things. The first one is together. So we have to avoid siloed entities. So we are increasingly working with agile organizations, modern structures of management, and we're now mostly working across the main teams. We have to enhance this and embrace the advantages of working in these kind of organizations. And also this fosters the use of common platforms to contribute, coming from different projects, different domains, and also sharing knowledge so that everyone gets the highest level of knowledge. And the common here is important as well. So we have to understand the organization's business objectives and understand also what objectives we have to meet, the stakeholder needs, and also with respect, comply with the overall project's schedule. And a good collaboration workflow, here if we speak about workflow, must rely on different things. The first one is the common understanding of the concept. So it's closely related to what I just mentioned. So if you want to understand the common goal, we have to use exactly the same words, or if we communicate, make sure that these words mean the same to all people involved in the project. So this is realized by using common glossaries, vocabularies, or even ontologies. We have to make use of configuration management because we have to know who the changes come from, because this enables to know what is the intent of the change and also what is the goal. So also the impact analysis, which is related to that. So how does this change affect other documents? And also change control. So define who is going to suggest changes and who has the ability to approve or reject the suggested changes. And also finally, the ability to synchronize different natures of engineering tools. So since we're working with cross-domain teams and the organizations are being more complex, the nature of tools we're using is also complex, and we need to have an homogeneous tool environment. And that's also enabled by the use of synchronized sources of truth that enable to synchronize all those different sources into one single data repository to make sure that we capture all the changes and also spread over these changes back to these sources. So we mentioned that in the previous webinars. If you're interested in looking closer into that, you can, of course, find the links on our website. So the need for configuration management is the key here if we talk about the focus of this webinar. And of course, change is a factor we cannot avoid, and it's originating a lot of risk. And as we are working in collaborative environments, this risk is being multiplied. So the risk is multiplied by the fact that we don't have the Control Z action that we usually have in a local file working only in one single document. We're talking about multiple sources, multiple documents, and the fact that people can work at the same time. So the simultaneous work will be covered in the next webinar. In this webinar, I'll talk about the impact of change, sequences of change in collaborative environments. So the questions we have to ask ourselves is, are the new requirements necessary? May we underspecify the system if we delete the requirements? But mostly when we talk about collaborative environments, are we introducing any conflicts? So that's the main thing here. And of course, we can change requirements to introduce conflicts. We can create new requirements that will end up in conflicting statements, and that's what we would like to avoid. So if you want more details about the configuration management in SES Engineering Studio, you can check out the webinar we presented at the end of last year. So in collaborative work within the tool, as I said, the simultaneous work and the use of roles and permissions to define the way people can work and share together will be covered in the next episode. I'll briefly introduce that at the end of the webinar. And in today's webinar, I'll explain the change management workflow, so how we can capture change requests and monitor the changes, define who is responsible for change control, and also who is contributing change suggestions, and also filter any attempt of change outside the workflow. So I'll explain that later, but since we're working in a Word document, obviously changes can be performed by any Windows user that has access to the file. So first, we have to manage the roles. So that's the first thing. So we work in organizations, so we have different roles and in organizations and of course in projects. And this means we have to define who is controlling the changes. So who is the project leader, who can enable, disable the change control mode to decide that at a certain point of the project we should work in change control mode. And also define contributors, so who can access the document. So not everyone can access the document, of course, and among those accessing the documents, who will be capable of creating change requests. So read-only access for those, except in change request mode, which is temporarily keeping your suggestions as before until the change control board decides to either accept or reject. So the process is pretty clear. Now we have to check with some examples how this is performed. So in this first example, I show how by defining different user roles, we can limit the access to the document when it is under change request. So in this first example, what I will be showing is that if we connect with a regular requirements engineer login, we won't be able to get past the change request mode. So I'm connecting to SES Engineering Studio, so you probably saw that in many times in the previous webinars if you joined. And the difference here is that instead of having access to modifying the document, you can see that it says you can make this change because the selection is locked. So while we are under change request, the content is controlled. So the ID is always controlled, but also the description in this case is controlled. So we cannot make any change to the document. The only way to suggest changes and to have these changes suggested is to go through the change control mode. So I could say, okay, I know how to disable the change request mode, so let's try that. If I'm contributor, and you see that the tool is not recognizing any user capable of managing this. So the only way I could contribute is by going through the change request mode. So you see the change request button on the top. You can start a change request, and at this moment, the content becomes editable, and there's a window prompted that tells you you can modify the requirements, and they will be put under change request. So you'll see that if we work on the engineering view, which is the right side, which is the SES Engineering Studio content view, we can suggest a change here. And you know from the previous webinar that if we do that, it should be synchronized with the left side. In this case, since we're in change request mode, it's not synchronized because so far it's not considered an approved change. It has to be approved to be propagated back to the source. So we're creating some kind of asynchronous situation until the user, the administrator, accepts the change request. And now that I finished with the change request, I could say, okay, so let's try to manage the change request myself. And you get the same window that we got before. So I cannot manage change requests because I'm not a user that can do that. So that's the first use case. So seeing how we can control who is changing and in which way. So the second use case is about managing changes inside and outside the plugin. So as I mentioned, we are working here in the Word environment. We're bringing requirements management capabilities in Word to compensate what Word is not offering in this area. So the good thing is we are giving requirements management capabilities in a very simple tool, but we have also to mitigate the fact that, of course, you have a user environment that is clearly defined within SES Engineering Studio, but what about people working in Word without entering SES Engineering Studio? So we can have many more users involved that don't have any SES Engineering Studio license or user, and what do we do about that? So if you work with a third party and you share the document, you might get to this situation where the document has been edited outside the document. So since this is where the SES Engineering Studio change management is located. So we should be controlling what happens at this border. So not only what's inside, but also what happens when a change is being suggested. So in this case, we have different workflows. So when it's in or outside the SES. So if it's inside SES Engineering Studio, this is what we saw just before. So we create the change request in SES, and it generates a change request here. When it is coming from outside, it's not qualified as a change request automatically. You have to get through an intermediate state in which the administrator will decide if this is becoming a change request or not. So all the changes that are not considered valid as for a change request, because either we know that it's already been suggested before, or because we don't consider it relevant, we can discard these changes. So we have a first filter, which will ease the work of the administrator that will manage the pending change requests. So since we only qualify relevant change requests, then the resolution will be eased, and it will be based on the creation date. So if you have more than one change requests, the tool will remind you that you have to manage them in order. And I'll show in the video that you cannot manage in the wrong order. So you have to go one after the other here. And if we talk about the resolution here, since we're working with the repository, the fact that we are creating change requests is also having an impact on the versions. So if we create a new version, if we accept the change request 1, we create a new version. If we reject the first version, the change request, since this is done within the SES, it's not propagated in the source. So the only thing we have to do is stay where we are. If we accept the change request here, anytime we go changing something in the source, so someone that doesn't access SES Engineering Studio to do the change, it's as if we get through an intermediate version 3 that would be rejected, and we go back to the version 2. So it's a different way to manage, but in the end, it's generalizing the way we manage change requests, either in or outside the SES. So I'll show in this example how we can create a change request within SES and outside SES, so two, and we'll see how the administrator manages that. I'll include something here as well, which is that it will be using the same ID. So just to see how the tool is managing the IDs within the Word document. So we go back to the change request mode. So we see the content in read only, and now you see that we cannot do anything until we enter again the change request mode. So now the tool is again notifying you that you can suggest changes, and then you can suggest not only to modify objects, but also to create new objects. And you'll see what happens with the ID, because as I mentioned in the first example, since this is not being synchronized with the source until you decide to approve the change, the user that's outside the document will not be seeing this one. So we save the change request. Visually, you see that the object is created, but after you save, you see that this is only kept on the repository side, and the source is not changed. So after we click on OK, you see that the object is not here. So here, what happens if I'm another user and I would like to add another requirement for the maximum speed of the system? I see that it's requirement 164, and I say, OK, so let's do 165, because I don't know that there's another change request pending. So I create another requirement. It's also the maximum speed, because we did attend a meeting in which we identified that this is a requirement that needs to be specified, and we do contribute almost at the same time, I would say. And the consequence here, the first consequence, very important here, is that this ID that we see here is going to be reassigned. So you see that now it's 166 as we get into the management of changes coming from the source. So you see that this is the window where we would be able to discard the elements. So you see 166, and if we go here, we can see the not treated state for the decision for this change. And in this case, we would like to create a change request for the selected item, and we will name that as well maximum speed with the relevant, the corresponding value. And once we do that, we can continue to the connection and see the new object created. So here it's 166, 165 is pending. So in that case, we are connected as a project manager. So this time we will be able to manage the pending change requests. So this appears in this window, and then we will see also the management of the change requests in order. So the first request we created, and in the first use case, you see here we can see the changes. We just get this turn this into approved, and this will confirm the change and propagate it also in the source document, so on the Word side. And then we put it in the completed state, and then we will see we have two requirements. The first one with 0.5 meters per second. You see that we can manage this one, and if we go into that one, you see that we cannot manage it, because the message we get here is that we manage it by in the order of the creation date. So the first one that was suggested is not necessarily the right one. We have to decide. So it's only about resolving in order. But we could say, okay, I see both, and I can say, okay, the first one is not the one I would like to keep. So I'm going to reject this one. And then I update the state, and then this becomes rejected. And we know that 165 is never going to be included. And 166 is approved, so this change is being kept within the document. And we can also provide the explanation so that anyone that would like to access the history of the change request could see why the change request was rejected. And then, as I'm a project leader, I can disable the change request mode and see that the object is being saved. You see the loaded state here, which is always what we would like to achieve, which is that the source document and the repository content are being synchronized. So let's move now to the questions. So I don't know if there are any questions in the chat box. In any case, I will leave you a couple of minutes while I talk to you about the next webinar. So as I said, this will be also covering collaborative environments, but more in the objective of working together on the same document. So how do we compensate the fact that Word documents cannot be accessed by multiple users, but we still would like to work in Word? So if you would like to see how we can have more people, so multiple users contribute to the same Word document, I invite you to join this webinar, which will be aired on 20th of June, 5 p.m. Central European time, and 22nd of June at 9 a.m. Central European time. So coming back to the questions, I don't know if there are any questions, Cecilia?
Yes, we have a question here. Does the detection of changes outside SES work only with Word, or is it available for other connections?
Okay, so yeah, of course, that's very important to remind, and thank you for the question. We are doing this series about MS Word, and of course, most of the capabilities we're showing here in MS Word are available in the other version of the tool, which is a desktop application. And in this case, we can connect to multiple sources, multiple PLM, ALM, requirements management tools, modeling tools, etc. And this capability of detecting changes in source and having a change request not only within the connection, but also considering people that are contributing outside the tool is generic. So it's not only available for Word, it's also available for all the other tools we can connect to. So thank you for the question.
Yes, we have another question. Is it possible to correct a submitted change request?
Okay, great. So in the video, you saw that when we suggest the change request, so anytime you submit the change request, you have to open another one. So if I try to understand the question, so we can only edit some of the attributes of the change request. So we can edit the name of the change request. So if you realize that the name of the change request is not precise enough, or you'd like to be more precise, you can change the name of an already submitted change request. You can, of course, change the rationale to give more explanation to the manager, and also specify the origin of the change request. So it's another free space that you can use to help sorting the different change requests and help in the decision. The only thing you cannot change, of course, this is pretty straightforward. It's what object you're performing the change request on. So this is not something you can change. But the rest, the rationale and the name of the change request is something you can edit after submitting the change request. So if you go too quick and you realize you didn't give the accurate description for the change request, this is something you can still edit afterwards. So I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you. And that would be all.
Great. So thank you, Cecilia, and thank you everyone for for joining, and I hope you will be joining soon our webinars. So if you'd like to check the content, remember that you can go into the webinar section in resources on our website, see the previous webinars, and we have also the YouTube channel to get more content and more details about the tools. And as I said at the beginning, if you have any questions, any details you'd like to discuss, you can contact me using my email and also the social media. So thank you, everyone, and see you soon.